Welcome, everybody, to Do It Yourself Again, more simple ways to make beautiful and user-friendly applications. My name is Lisa Sawyer. I'm a UX manager here at QuickBase. I've been here part of the team for about 5 years now, and I'm very excited to bring this talk to you again this year. This is the third one, so I'm very happy to be here. But if you're like me, I've been at QuickBase for about 5 years, as I mentioned. But I'm definitely not an expert builder. For myself, actually, I would put myself kind of right in the middle of this sort of scale here. And this talk is really for people like me in the middle, or a 1 or a 2 or a 3 on the scale. It's really focused on bringing some really different ways of thinking about designing your app, not just building your app, and bringing some cool tips and tricks to you to make that end user experience delightful. And if you're like me, these formulas and API calls and fancy buttons that do fancy tricks, they kind of make you cringe. But I have a solution for that. The tips and tricks I'm going to share with you today, and the application that I'm going to give you a link to that's available to everyone on the internet, will give you some easy tips and tricks in order to sort of make that cringe go away. So what I'm going to do today, as I mentioned, I'm really going to bring you some easy designing principles to guide you through this process of changing your thinking from just building an application to really designing an application and thinking about your users and the experience that it's going to bring to them. And if you do this and you use these tips and tricks and you really start thinking this different mindset, it's really going to boost your end user adoption. It's really going to improve that user experience of the application. And this companion app that I'm going to show in a second really will give you easy copy-pastable tips and tricks for you to go forth and make your own applications really delightful. And here it is. It's open to everyone on the internet, as I'm saying. If you go to help.quickbase.com/DIY, you'll see this application. And this is not in the Exchange, this application specifically. And the reason it's not in there is because I add to it all the time. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've been doing this talk for 3 years now. I started with 50 and now we're up to 57. So I keep adding tips and tricks as I hear about them. So to make sure that I can share those all with everyone that accesses the application, it's up there and available to everyone on the internet. That being said, I'm doing some demonstrations during this talk this year. And in those demonstrations, I'm using an app called a little fake app called Freedom Fitness. And that is in the related content box in your viewer right now. And that app is in the Exchange. So you can see all of the tips and tricks that I'm implementing today is in that Exchange app. So if you want to take a closer look at that and understand how they're done specifically, you can take a look at those. So let's get started. For the agenda today, I'm going to walk you through some design principles quickly, really get you thinking in a different mindset. I have some demonstrations for you. I'm going to apply some of those principles and some of those tips and tricks for you live in person here. And I'm going to then walk you through, there's some other resources in that DIY app that I just want to make sure that you know is there, because those are also very helpful outside of QuickBase, some tips and tricks for you. And then I'm going to leave some time at the end for a wrap up and questions. So let's dive in. Design principles. Let's start there. But as you can see, there's a little asterisk, there's a little caveat. So before I dive in, I just wanted to call out the principles that I'm going to share with you today are very, very high level. They're design principles in a way that is just going to get you thinking in sort of a different way. If you want to understand more specifically about specific design principles, there's another talk that I think you should check out. It's called Think Like the Designer, Design Principles for Building Apps. And that's a quick hit, and it's available anytime if you want to check that out. The talk is given by 2 of my colleagues, and I think they're great, so you should go check that out. So that caveat's done. Let's get going. This is probably one of the overarching principles that I want you to take away from this talk. And if you take away nothing, if you leave after this slide, this is something that I really want you to think about. That all of you are not just app builders, you're app designers. And I want you to think about from that perspective, what is the experience that your end users are taking away with using your application? It doesn't just do things technically, it's the experience that they're going to take away with them. And that's what I want you to start thinking about. And in order to start thinking about that more specifically, I have some specific design principles for you. So, and there's 3 of them. The first one is simplicity and clarity. Put only what people need on the page when they need it. So hide tables maybe in the table bar that aren't needed. I'm going to walk you through an example where there's a files table. It's great to have a files table to have somewhere to store things in your application, but you probably don't need to have it in the table bar for all of your users. Go ahead and hide that. So really think about what's on the screen at any given moment, what's in a form. Maybe you don't need to show everything. Think about it from a simplicity and clarity standpoint. The second principle I want to walk you through is optimize for tasks. So think about how your user is going to be using the application. What's the flow of information? What are they trying to accomplish? Think about that so that the app brings less friction as they're trying to accomplish what they're doing, and really think about the tasks they're trying to accomplish. And the last one is delight, design for delight. And that one's a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to go into that one a little bit deeper. So what do I mean by delightful? In QuickBase specifically, this means that it's really looking at the defaults and the little tiny details that just make interaction just a little bit more delightful. My last demo today actually goes into this a lot deeper, like ways to think about designing for delight that maybe you hadn't thought of. But here's some examples for you to get you going. Color coding, like how can you color code your reports to make it easier for people to look through information and find what they're looking for more quickly? How can you change the defaults of the filtering? So on a report, you can customize the filters that are available for your end users. Make it easy for them to just click and find exactly what they're looking for. We have the defaults there, use them. Better record titles. I think this is probably one of my biggest pet peeves because it's so easy to fix. By default, QuickBase just shows you the record ID. So if you click into a record at the top of the form, it just has record ID 123. That's just not very usable and not very user-friendly. It doesn't tell you information about what you're looking at. That's an easy default that you can change to some other field on your form that's more useful. So if it's a table of contacts, choose the contact's name, right? That's super easy and makes a huge difference if someone's looking through their application. Field help. I'm going to go into this again in one of my demonstrations today. I'm going to show you how you do this. This is a built-in function of QuickBase. It's super easy to add field help. If you're having people have a hard time get through a form, say, add some help in there to help them out. So what kind of information you're looking for in this form, you can use this feature right in QuickBase by default, and it really adds a good touch to your forms. Better record pickers. If you have a form that people have to make associations between data in your application, you can make it easier for them to pick the proper association. You can choose different fields to show in the record picker so that people know what they're choosing just a little bit easier. Again, that's super easy to change. It's in table settings. And show specific information on a dashboard that gets people so they don't have to go anywhere else. They can look at their dashboard and they get the information that they want. And the last one here, and I kind of mentioned this earlier, hide unneeded tables. Like this is, again, super easy, but really thinking about clarity and simplicity. Just try hiding stuff that people don't need, that just clutters the interface. So these are all examples of defaults that really help make the interaction with your application just a little bit more delightful. But I'll take a little deeper dive into this in my last demonstration today. Okay, so let's start applying some of these principles. For today, I am going to be walking through, this is a fake company that I made up for today's talk. And this is the related content application, this Freedom Fitness. That's the related application that we're going to be working today. So in our fake company, we have two different roles that we're talking about. We have a trainer, Abigail, on the left, and we have Kelly, who's a developer, on the right there. And what I want you to start thinking about is these are two employees of the company. I want them to use QuickBase because I need the information that they're providing. But how can we make their interaction with this application better so that it's less friction? They're giving us the information we need, but their experience of using it is much more delightful. And when I think about that, and when I want you to think about when you're thinking about your own applications, is thinking about the users and the roles and the experience that they need out of the application. So these two examples here, and there's probably other roles in this application that we're not even talking about, and I'm sure you have more than two roles in your applications. But Abigail, the trainer on the left-hand side there, she does different tasks than the developer on the right. She does office tasks, she does approvals, she has appointments with her clients, she does training sessions with her clients, and she does daily time cards. So there's a lot of overlap. Well, there's overlap here between Abigail and Kelly. They both do timesheets, but on a bigger level, they do different things in the application. So how can we customize the application to sort of suit their needs and their tasks, right? That was the second principle. Optimize for users' tasks in the application. And then we have Kelly on the right here. She's a developer. She runs the development team monthly retros, and I'm going to walk through what a retro is when we get there. And she does daily time cards. So you can see that they do different tasks inside of QuickBase, and there is a little bit of overlap. So let's specifically look at the application that I'm going to be working in today. And here's the structure. So I wanted to walk you through from a high level. So we have the trainer. This is Abigail. She does most of her work in our application inside of the trainer's area and the clients in the sessions. She deals with running her session boot camps. So she mostly works in that area of the app. She does do the timesheets as well. As I mentioned, all of our users use timesheets. But then we have the developer. She basically does something different in the applications. She still uses it. She still provides great information for what we need as a business, but she uses it differently. So how can we think about these different users and their different experiences using the application? One overlap that I see looking at this is timesheets. Every single person in our company and these two roles uses timesheets. So I'm actually going to start there. I'm going to look at that form, and we're going to optimize it for the user's tasks. And in this case, the user's tasks, no matter what the role, it's always the same. They're trying to give us the information on when they worked in the quickest, easiest way possible. So that's our goal for today. So if you look on the left-hand side, the timesheets form, it's not bad looking, right? I've sort of moved it around from the default. And in a previous Empower session of this DOI talk, I go through taking a default form and making it more user-friendly. So check out that if you'd like to take a look at it. But I've kind of done those basic things to this form here. So it's not that bad looking, but we can actually make it much less friction for our users entering information daily. So on the after section, you can see that it knows who I am. The team member is me. The default date is set. But then we've also pulled in my usual start time and my usual end time. Those are sets. Those are like customized hours that I know that I work on a daily basis. So this form actually knows what my usual hours are. So if I don't have a change in that, if I don't say, have a dentist appointment in the morning, or if I'm not working late or something, if it's just a normal day, I literally have to click new timesheet and then save, because everything else is exactly the same. So it might seem like a small change, but if this is a task the users are doing all the time, this is much less friction than entering in every single field to just clicking new and save. So let's start working on that problem. So for my first demonstration, I'm going to walk through setting these customized defaults for this form. And we're really going to optimize for the user's flow through this little task that they do on a daily basis. So let's flip over to Google Chrome here. And before I dive into that specific Freedom Fitness application, I wanted to walk you through real quickly this DIY app. And again, this is the app that's available to everyone on the internet. And this, as you can see, we're currently up to 57 tips. I add tips all the time, but everything that I'm going to be walking through today is shown in this application. For this first tip, I'm going to look at the field defaults. So and you can search for that here. I will show you the one that I'm looking at. And this is a very high level, simple tip. There's no coding required for this idea of something to walk through. And I'll show you on the form the easy way to set simple defaults. Well, we're going to take that up a notch this time, and we're going to use some formulas to capture that customized default. So that's a little bit taking this up a notch. But actually setting defaults on fields is super easy, and it's a checkbox, and I can show you how to do that along with that sort of like amped up approach. So let's skip over to our Freedom Fitness app. So here we are on the timesheets. I've just clicked New Timesheet, and this is currently what all users see when they add a new timesheet. You have a team member field that actually sets the relationship between the team member and the timesheet. As if you remember the structure, team members table has many timesheets, and every time you enter a timesheet, it's associated with the user. So in this case, it would be me if I was entering a timesheet. So there's that field. And then we just have filling in basic start time and end time. But QuickBase knows actually a lot of information about me. It knows who I am specifically. See, I'm logged in up here in the top corner. That's me. It should know who I am. So I shouldn't have to tell it what team member I am. QuickBase should know that. So that's where we're going to start. But before I jump into that, I did want to call out, you can see that there's a section down here at the bottom of the form, and you can probably tell from the title that this section, I'm the admin in this application, and I am the only one that can see that section. I'm going to show you how to do that in a dynamic form rule later on. But I did want to call your attention to this member profile, usual start time and usual end time. What is that exactly? So if I go back over to team members, so this is another table in our application, and every single employee in the company has a team member profile. It has all of the sort of basic information that you would expect. It has phone numbers, it has address, all that kind of stuff. But something else that we have in there is the usual work hours. And we're going to use this to customize entering time. And if you're like me, I probably work the same hours every day. I probably don't have to enter time for that. You should know what it is. So why do I have to like fill that in every time? So we're going to use this information that the users have already given us. So let me go back to timesheets. Great. Okay, so we're back on a form and we kind of know where we are. The first thing and the probably easiest thing we're going to change is team member, it automatically knowing who I am and filling that information in. And that's super easy. So let's look at that. A quick tip here to jump into field properties, a little actually quick way to get to a lot of things when you're looking at a form, is this little right click. If you right click near any field on your form, you can get into this little menu. And what we want is this edit field properties. So I'm going to go in the field properties for a team member. And what I want to change here is super easy. It's just a click of a different default. And again, as I mentioned from the DIY app, a lot of these defaults, you don't have to do anything special. There's no coding. A lot of them have really easy things that you can just check or fill in really quickly. This is one of them. So right now, I just want to check this second one, this current user. So now every time someone new creates a timesheet, it's going to set that field. I click save. It's going to set this field to the current user. And that's what I want. I'm adding time for myself. I only want people to add time for themselves. I don't want to fill in a time card for somebody else. So now the field, when I go in, it knows who I am and it automatically fills it in. And because it's the field that sets the relationship between team members and timesheets, it actually automatically creates that relationship for me. So the data gets entered more correctly because it knows who I am and it automatically fills that in. And it reduces friction for the team member actually coming in here. I don't even have to think about it. QuickBase automatically knows. But one thing I do want to do also is to sort of like make sure that users don't change that, again, because I want the team member to only fill in time for themselves. So one other setting on that field, and this is in the form element properties. So this is another option in that quick links area. If you come into your form and you make sure that the item that you want to change is selected, so here that first field is selected. One other easy default there is like, just make this read only on when I'm entering data. So if I check that checkbox and click save, so this ensures that it's the right data because it knows who I am. It makes sure that me as a user, I don't have to think about it and fill it in. And it also makes it so I can't have a stray click or change it for some reason and change it to something that's not myself. So this does multiple things, and it's all by setting a couple of different checkboxes and a couple of different areas in QuickBase. So that's step number one. Step number two here, I'm going to actually start using these times that we know someone has told us what their usual start time and end time is. We want to use those on this form. So in order to do that, I'm going to right-click here again, and again, there's multiple different little shortcuts in here. One of the other shortcuts is adding another field. So you can add 2 more fields. And this is what we want to do. We want to add 2 fields for time of day formulas so we can grab that information that they're using. So we come in here and click add field after this one. And I know it's not already on our table, so let's create a new one. And we're going to say start time. And like I said, I want the formula time of day, and click done. So there's one field, and then I want another field. I want the start time and I want the end time. And again, it's not on my table already, so I will add it. And it's another formula time of day. Click done. Okay, so now we have our 2 fields, but we don't have the formulas in there. So how do we do that? So if we jump back into the field properties, that's where you add the formulas for fields. So if you click into the start time, I actually have this in a little notepad, and don't worry, I'll tell you exactly what these are doing. So if I go back here, so for our start time, what it's doing is it's checking if the actual start time, so this is the little editable start time field. If someone didn't change something different, if they didn't have a dentist appointment and started an hour later, or if they didn't work late and work extra hours in the evening, the start time is just checking if that's empty. If that field is empty, it's going to use the usual start time. That's the lookup field from our team profiles table. So if I click save there, so now as you can see, it knows who I am, and its start time is my usual start time is 11, so it's pulling that information up. So we just have to do that again for our end time. If we flip over to my formula, and this one is doing the same thing, only it's doing it for end time. It's checking if that's filled in. If it's not, it's using our usual end time. So if I click save, right, so now we have pulling in our information from our lookup fields, but our form is kind of a mess now. We have a jumble over here, so we need to fix the layout. In order to fix the layout, we come up over here to customize this form. And in order to, I want start time and end time, the formula fields to be on the same row. And then I want the extra fields that they are filling in to be underneath that. And I also want, between the new formula fields that we put on there, I want just a little text hash mark. And this is a small thing that I just like to do. I think it helps with readability. just going to copy this because we have one below in our other fields. So I added a text field in between our new fields. And you just have to make sure, so this is HTML. And this is, you just have to make sure that you're checking this HTML checkbox just to make sure it shows up properly on the form. But going back to having everything aligned properly. So I want date to be on its own line, and then I want the start date to be a start of a new line. And then I want these two things, the text and the end time, to be on the same row. Then I want the actual start time to start its new row. And then I want the little hash mark and the actual end time to be on the same row. So I think this is our layout that we want. Let me preview it. Yes, this looks much better. So we have our start time, a little hash mark, our end time in between our little areas here. What I do want to add to is, and I promise this for you, is how do I add help text here? So by default, these two fields are blank, and it might look confusing. People might think that they need to fill in a value here, but what it's doing is actually going to fill in these automatically unless you change it. So how do we add in field help text? Well, it's very easy, actually. So actual start time and actual end time is what we want the help text for. So if you select the field on the left there, up in the right-hand corner, there's a properties button. So if you click that properties button, that gets back into our field properties, just another way of getting there. And what I want, if you scroll down at the bottom of all field properties, you have this field help text little box, and if it's blank, nothing shows up. If you type something in it, it shows up on your form. And what I want is a little message that says optional, only fill in if different and usual. And I can copy that because I want that same message on my other field. So if I go to the end time, click on this properties button, make this bigger so we can see it, scroll down and paste, click save. Okay, so I think that's all good. One thing before I go that I want to show you here, as I mentioned, that little section at the bottom of my form that's only showing for me as an administrator, that's a dynamic form rule. So let me just point that out while I'm here. It is a super easy little place where you can, on an individual form, you can make it react to a bunch of different things. One thing that this form is reacting to is me, the user, the role that I'm in as administrator. So it's actually showing that administrator section. Sorry, I'm trying to scroll down here. Well, trust me, it's down there. So you can, so this is checking if the user is in the administrator role, then it will show this section. And what's below that I can't quite get to, it says, if not, it hides that section. So for all other roles, it's hiding that section. And all I had to do here was choose some little drop downs to tell it what I wanted to do. And it's making that form, again, going back to clarity and simplicity. What do I need to show in the moment for the user that's using the form? Me as an administrator is the only one that really cares about that section, so I'm hiding it for everybody else. So if you haven't checked out dynamic form rules, they're really pretty cool and they're pretty easy to use. So take a look at that. So let me save this and go back and make sure that what we have is what we're looking for. So what I have here is the form knows who I am. It is defaulting to today that was already set up. And then it's pulling in the two lookup fields. So for me, I start at 11 usually, and I end at 7. But let's say I had a dentist appointment and I'm starting on early so I can sign off a little later. So I'm starting at 10 a.m. today. So you can tell automatically these fields will override the start time and end time on my time sheet. And a little note for you as the builder, these are the fields that would use for reporting and for making sure that you get the right data in there, and they just automatically get overridden when they need to get overridden when the user uses it. So that's where we are with that one. So let's go back to our demo. Okay, so we set some greater defaults on our form so that the user really can understand have way less friction, start a new timesheet and click save 90% of the time. Really think about your tasks. Again, that second principle. Really think about the tasks that users are doing and how can you optimize for those different tasks. So let's go back in. I have a second demo to show you that I promised you at the beginning. And this one really focuses on our developer friends. They all use timesheets, but they also do team retros. And team retros, for anyone that's not familiar, a team retro is an agile process for development where teams get together on a regular basis, could be monthly, could be every month and a half or so-ish. And they have conversations, and I'll show you a report here in a second. Actually, I'll just go to that. They have conversations around how they can improve their processes as a team. And it's usually done in sort of a Kanban style. You have different columns here. So what's working, what's not working, what's puzzling, and what to fix. And the goal of these meetings is to really for the team members to post cards and suggestions and things that are confusing them so that the team can have a better discussion on how they can improve. So Kanban is a built-in feature of QuickBase. This is a great way to use a built-in feature for a regular team process like this. And we do this at QuickBase. We use Kanban and QuickBase for this exact purpose internally. But one thing we've learned a couple of things actually from running our own retrospectives. So you can see the cards here, no one can interact with them. You can't say, yes, I really agree with this statement, or no, I don't agree with this statement, which would then improve conversation on the team, right, in that retro. And another thing this is not doing is the color coding is only dependent on the column that it's looking at. So what I'm going to do is in the demonstration, I'm going to add a delightful way for users to interact with these individuals' cards and actually react, thumbs up, thumbs down to the different statements that the team is making. And then I'm going to also give you a way to have the color coding react to that interaction with the different cards. So you can see if it gets more thumbs up, the green color gets more intense. If you get more thumbs down, more people disagreeing with the statement, you get a more intense red color. So really using that color to enhance conversation on the team and enhance the actual goal of the whole meeting is to improve our processes. Okay, so demo number 2. Let's make this interaction with the Kanban more delightful, and let's really use that color coding to enhance clarity of information. So let's jump back over. Okay. So I'm going to jump over to the team retros table. And you can see by default is just what we were just looking at in the previous screen. We have the Kanban, basic Kanban setup. We don't have a way of interacting really. And the color coding is okay, but it's not really supporting what we're trying to do here. One thing before I jump in, the first thing we're going to do actually is I'm going to show you where this tip is inside of our application on our tips app. If you come here and you search for thumb, it shows right up. And I want to show you every single tip in this application. As I mentioned before, it has step-by-step on how to implement those. And then it has copy pastable formulas. So we're going to be using these copy and pastable formulas here in this demonstration. One thing I do want to show before we jump in too much is I think every single application I've ever built has one of these tables where I can just drop in documents and images that I use in the app. As you can see, our logo here, the Freedom Fitness logo, is pulled from here. And this just provides a way that you can grab a URL and use it inside of your application easily. Well, for this demonstration, we're going to be using also this thumbs down and this thumbs up little hand sign picture. And they're already uploaded in the app, and they're in our files table. So with that, let's jump into our table, and let's jump into our fields area, because step 1 in our little step-by-step here is we have to add a bunch of fields. So some formula fields, some numeric fields, and a rich text formula field. So let's jump into fields. And I've actually gone ahead, if I just search for vote. I've gone ahead and done the boring part of just adding in these blank fields. Adding in blank fields is super easy. It's kind of boring to watch though, but if you click on this new fields button, you just add a label and you can pick a type. That's all I've done so far. No formulas or anything entered. But I've added all the fields in step 1. And I'll walk through what each one of them is doing. Thumbs up vote and thumbs down vote icon, that's just a formula field to show that icon of the thumbs up and the thumbs down. The no votes and yes votes, those are just numeric. We actually don't have to enter any formula or anything. Those are just capturing and incrementing every time someone clicks up or clicks down on a card. We have the vote nope and vote yep formulas. Those are the ones that are actually clicking. If the user clicks on something, it's actually doing the action of incrementing that number. And then we have that last vote bar formula rich text field there. And what that does is actually brings together all of these fields. So at the end, we only have to add that one field, that vote bar field, to our Kanban in order to make it work. So it's pretty slick. So let's jump in. The first one we need is the formula for this vote up. And if you come into our copy pastable code, you just copy this one on the right here for vote up. If I scroll down a little bit, I can paste it in there. And I just want to call attention to this is automatically referring to that files table that I have in this application that might not match your own application if you're copy and pasting this into your own application. And QuickBase will highlight it in bright yellow if it doesn't match the naming. So that's something you might have to check on your end. So I pasted that in, just click save. And I just need to do the same thing for the vote down. Oh, actually, there's one other thing I need to check. So if I click copy on the vote down and I paste, that's referring properly. I always like to check too, and this also goes for you as well, just to make sure that the file path that QuickBase knows to look for, that it's actually correct. So let me open in another tab so we can just make sure that our file paths are correct. And I think we're in the thumbs down right now. So if I open the thumbs down, what I need to capture is just this end part for the URL. And I'm just going to copy it and just paste it in there just to make sure that I'm getting it right. It's just seeing it properly. And again, this is the same for you, just to make sure that your path is correct. And I'm just going to do that for vote up just to make sure that that is the correct path. Copy and paste. Save. Okay, so we have those two. As I mentioned, the no votes and the yes votes are just numeric and they just increment up, so I don't have to do anything to those two. But the vote nope formula and the vote yep formula, those two have formulas that we have to paste in. And I just know before I go in there that I'm going to need the vote nope actually refers to this no votes field that I have. And what I'm going to need in that formula is this field ID. So I'm going to remember, and everyone help me remember, 14. So when I go into vote nope formula, if I go back over to our DIY app, formula is right here, and I just need to copy it. And switch back over and paste. And again, so I know that this is referring to the correct field. So the no votes is the correct name, so that's not being highlighted. What I do need to know is it was 14, right? So let's change that to 14. So in your app with your fields, you probably need to change these two things just to make sure this is the proper name and make sure this ID is referring to that same field. So if we click save, and we want to do the same thing for the yep. And again, just copy and paste. And our no was 14 and our yes is 15. So let's change that to 15. Again, our field name is correct. Click save. We just have one more, that vote bar, that mother of all fields that brings everything together. And again, this is just copy and pastable inside of the application, the DIY app. Copy that. Paste this. Okay, so you can see that QuickBase is actually highlighting some stuff that looks incorrect. And what's this telling me? What QuickBase is telling me here is thumbs up icon. It doesn't know what that means. The name doesn't match something in my application. So if you see this in your own application, when you're putting it in there, that's what that means. QuickBase is like, I just don't know what this is. And I know when I added this in, I added a word into the extra thing. So I know. So this is thumbs up icon, but my actual name is thumbs up vote icon. So I just check that. And the same thing with thumbs down. If I check the one that's in my application, clears those highlights and it clears the errors. It now knows exactly what I'm referring to. So click save. Great, so now we have all of our fields and all of our fields are brought together. If we exit and go back out to our retros. Okay, well, nothing looks different. That's because we need to actually add that vote bar to our report. And if we go into the settings for this specific report, and again, all we need to do is add that vote bar as a field. We click that, and we click save. So now, magically, we have a way of our users to delightfully interact with what people are saying in our retros. And the next part of this is, how do we get this color to actually react to the thumbs up, thumbs down? So right now, if you click up, it's working. It automatically will increment and it'll thumbs up, thumbs down. I'm just gonna add some votes so we can see the color coding working in a second. So this one is, everyone is agreeing with this, you know, our daily meetings are not productive. This is a hot topic. So we want the team to actually focus on this because people are agreeing on it. Let's talk about it so we can fix it. So this is a thumbs up. Building is hard. Yeah, no one thinks it's hard. Super easy. So let's vote down this one multiple times here, so we can get some color coding working. Okay, so now we have a bunch. Let's just, empower is awesome. Let's thumbs up that one. Okay, so now we have some votes here, and let's make that color coding react to those thumbs up. If we go back into our DIY app, because this tip is related to that reaction color coding, I actually recorded it, linked it to that. So you can actually just click right over to it directly. And let's take a look. It's pretty easy. All you have to do is find the report you want in the report settings and the color coding. I'll show you that in a little bit. And you need to paste in this formula. So it's super easy. Let's copy this. Let's go into our report. And what we want to do is change the color coding that this report is using. Let's go back into the settings. Let's scroll down. So the color coding area is at the bottom of our settings area. Right now it's set by type, and I don't want it to use that. It's not useful. It's not helping the clarity of our information. So let's click over and use a formula. And before I just paste it in there, I did want to point out there is a simple way, and this is another tip in that application. You can also edit the default settings for this report. So you can change it so that anytime anyone creates a report that has this interaction, you can then automatically use this color coding to indicate different settings. So if you created another Kanban report for a different retro for a different team, this will follow you. So you can do there if this is something that you want it everywhere. If you want it only in this report, you can just do it right here in line for this report. And another call out too before I move on here, these actual colors that I'm using, totally customizable if you want a different color set. It might make more sense, say, that if something is reacting positively or thumbs up something, that actually might mean something bad, right? There might be voting for a feedback item, and it's the more votes it gets, the worse it is, right? So you want that to be red, say. So you can change these colors to match what you're trying to accomplish. And also the numbers here, this is the threshold for the numbers that people are entering. So the number of thumbs up or thumbs down that changes the color. That also is dependent on the color set. So if you have a very large team, say, and something that's a hot topic might require 10 votes, right? Or if you have a really small team and maybe 1 vote up is an indicator of something that's something to take a look at. So change those thresholds depending on what data that you're expecting. Click save there. Okay, so now you can see we have some different color coding going on here. Let's thumbs up this one once more so we can see it change. This is a darker green. So this green and less hot button of a topic gets lesser green. So this one has six thumbs up, so we can see that this is a darker green, and this is a lighter green. So it indicates sort of like the intensity of reactions on the team, really helps people to discuss what needs to be discussed so you can get to the point of the meeting, which is what do we want to fix. So here's just a delightful way to look at that Kanban board and really look at user interaction in order to make this just more delightful and use the color coding to match that clarity of information. One last bit here, I wanted to show you the last resources that we have on the Tips app. If you go to that app and you scroll down on the homepage, you'll see that there's more resources there. And what's in there that I really want you to know there and check out, it's not just about what's specifically in QuickBase that you can do. There's other things like formula documentation. We have an app that documents all of our formulas. That's linked here from this app. We have a basic HTML course. So I hinted at the little text with a check mark there and the little hash between the time. That was HTML. If you want to use any little basic HTML things like that, there's a course there linked in the app. And there's some copy pastable other stuff. So there's an accessible color palette. So if you want to make sure that people with different capabilities on your team want to make sure that the color coding that you're choosing, people can see the differentiation in color. That's a good color palette for you to look at. There's also the magic buttons, and that's in the Exchange. That has like buttons that do magical things. It's aptly named, and you can get that at Exchange, and you can use that to enhance buttons in your application. And the automatic formula machine, this is a great one. This is another publicly accessible application that Brian Caffarelli put together. So if I can't figure out how to write your own formula and it's not in my Tips app, try that automatic formula writing machine. You can put in what you want and it'll spit out the formula to get there. So different font sizes, different colors that react to different things, that's your ticket. And each one of them has a little go get it button and you can go directly to that resource. Okay, so what did we cover today? So hopefully I talked to you about some easy designing principles that really to help you think about from your user's perspective to really improve that end user experience. And after doing that, hopefully that'll make your end users just find your app delightful and use it much more easily because you thought from that perspective. And also I showed you those copy and pastable easy code snippets and tips and tricks in that DIY app that you can do and use for yourself. And hopefully you can use those in your own applications. And I just wanted to end on this note. Again, if you take nothing else away from this, if you don't use any of the tips and tricks, but you change your mindset that you're not just an app builder, you're an app designer, and really think about your users as you're thinking about building and designing your app out, your app will be, and your users will be much better off for it. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. Please, please rate this session. It's available right in the viewing application that you're looking at. This really helps me improve as a speaker and helps us improve what kind of sessions that you guys all enjoy. So please do that before you move on. And if you have questions for me specifically or questions for any other speaker at any other session, go over to the QuickBase Community Slack channel, the Empower Sessions channel specifically, and at me specifically. I am Lisa Sawyer. I would love to hear what you thought, and if you have questions, please reach out. And I'm going to end here. If you have questions, there's some time now to ask in the chat. But also, again, walk over to that QuickBase Slack channel.